Okay, so this is going to be my comprehensive walkthrough of my project that I did in COP 4870, which is full stack development in C sharp. And this was a pretty cool project. So basically, overall, the project is kind of a clinic app. So you have the ability to create physicians, patients, and then use those to make appointments. And it deals with all the scheduling conflicts and things like that. I think throughout this class, I have earned an A um, through the various things that I've added. And I actually did the honors augment section of this course as well. So I added in, extra functionality, extra features, which I'll be talking about throughout this video. But through, course guidelines, I think I've got the A for this course. So first, I wanted to start with just a general walkthrough of the project. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate what it looks like. And we're working with .NET MAUI for this project, so it shouldn't start. All right, so here's the main page of the app. So you have the physician view, patient view, and the appointment view. So the way I did the application is you have to, well, you don't have to, but you should do physician first, and then you should go back to main page, make a patient, and then from there you can create an appointment, because it doesn't let you create an appointment unless you have a physician and a patient, and you have to start with the patient. So let's do the physician. So you have, actually, let me talk about these first. So this is similar on all of the physician, patient, and appointment. So you have, full CRUD functionality. So you have add, edit, delete, create. And then also these are some honors augment features, which are sort by graduation date, ascending and descending. So let's go ahead and create person. Let's just put in some random data. Specialization, man. Okay, so this doesn't really matter. And I'll go ahead and add a few uh, interspecialization guy. And I'll just do one more. And I'm actually I'll demonstrate the sort by, actually. So let's just do Bob. I don't know what to type here. I'm gonna just put in some dummy data. So let's just put this in the past. Okay, so sort by will go ahead, and if we do ascending, that'll start with the farthest back, the oldest one, and go towards the current. So if we do that, it starts at switch them to 5-1 and then 12-7. So that works. And we also have these inline edit and delete buttons over here. So if we want to go ahead and change it from 5-1, we could do 6-1, for example. So yep, there we go. That works. And delete works. So I'll go ahead and delete those too. Go back, and it's still there. So let's go ahead and create an appointment. So let's make a patient. I'm gonna just put in my name again. I'll just put in Gene, John Doe. Blah blah blah. Put in some dummy data. And so from here, we can create an appointment by selecting the patient first, and then it'll route us to the physician page there, where we can, grab a physician, create an appointment. And so I have it set to where the appointment must be made at least a week in advance. And then from there, from a week, you have a three-week window to make an appointment. So from 1 week out to 4 weeks out at the max. And so also you have to make the appointment from 8 to 4. and they last 1 hour, so they have to be made on the dot. So for example, like 9:30 a.m. wouldn't work, 9:45 a.m. It has to be at the top of the hour, so I'll just do 9 a.m. And 1 second. And the time of me explaining that. Oh, it's because I didn't remember to set the date right. That was my bad. There we go. So now and the reason it didn't work is because I forgot to set it for a week in advance while I was explaining it. So there's that. It shows you the patient, the date and time, the location, room one. I'll touch more into the rooms feature in a minute. And it also says completed, and well, it's not completed actually. It says no. So when you complete appointment, you'll be asked for the diagnosis details. So let's just say I don't know, blah blah. They need meds. Mark as completed, and so it will gray out all of the completed appointments, but the newly created appointments, like we saw in like before we completed it, it'll be like normal color, and things like that. And once you have completed an appointment, it doesn't make sense for you to be able to edit or delete it because it's already done. So you don't have the ability to edit or delete it. So that's basically the overall you know, walkthrough of the actual app. If you want to test out you can just put in dummy data, and if you want to test out the sort by again for patient, since we did physician, let's just do this person's born in the future on Christmas. Add another patient. We can do 2024. And so if we do ascending, it'll sort by ascending, and then if we do descending, it'll sort by descending. So all that works, and you know, it's a pretty smooth application. I tried to make sure there was as little bugs as possible, and I feel like I've definitely thoroughly tested it. I'm still going to actually be adding to this application as well. There's some things that I wanted to add, for example, like feedback on, for example, appointment view. If you try to create an appointment that's in the past, for example, or something like that, that's something I could potentially add to the application just to make it stronger. And you know, there's other features I would like to add. So that's something that I'm going to be continuously working on. And I also have it set up with an API, with a web API. And that web API feeds the data into a database. But I want to be able to add the information directly into this app, and then it'll feed it into the database. So, you know, there's some things that I want to work on, but I would say for the course, I've, you know, gone pretty beyond the scope of the course already. So there's that. And so let's jump into the code just to do any explanation. So first, this is just the main program. It, you know, generates this for you. There's, you know, everything set up so that it creates the MAUI app and things like that. These are the fonts that they give us. I didn't mess around with that. I did add these two because this goes hand in hand with the with checking the physician view to make sure that there's at least one physician made before they try to make an appointment. So that's why I had to have these here. And so I won't go through all of these, but just the ones that are important. This app shell basic overview is that it handles all the routing. So for example, when we want to navigate from the main page to the patient view or the physician view, this is basically all the routing that takes care of that. If we move to the views, so we have all of these views. These are basically when you press those buttons, for example, like main page, main page, you start at the main page, but like patient view, physician view, appointment view, these are all of these views. and what is on the front end when you get shown that page. And it also has a code behind that handles the back end logic, like when you press buttons and things like that. So uh, let me see. So for example, add appointment, it tells you to what's it called? Uh, what's it called? Appointment date, appointment time, things like that. It has those buttons for you. So that's basically what the XAML files are. And time picker is within MAUI itself, within .NET itself. So I just use that so that we can have a nice little like scroll for the time, and things like that. So the XAML files pretty much are the same. If I go to the code behind, for example, so this is the add appointment one. This is the add appointment XAML.cs file, and it has these properties, and it takes in a patient ID and a physician ID, and it tells us if we're adding. And this is adding comes from it comes from the page where I'm pretty sure it's the add physician, or not add physician, but physician page. It should be. So yeah, here we go. So when we go to create an appointment, we'll send in this data, and it basically feeds the patient ID and the physician ID into the route, so that we know that we're adding an appointment, and we get the correct patient ID and physician ID. So that's like probably the hardest part that was for this application. I definitely did it in a weird way. It was just the first way that I thought I could do it, because I wasn't really sure how to have multiple different lists on one page. But that's also something I could change, but it would make for a lot of changes that I would have to do. So yeah, so that's pretty much it for the add appointment. You have all the what happens when you press add, add or update. It feeds it into the service proxy, and uses binding context. So binding context is basically all of the data that the user puts in. It binds those properties into properties that are on the model itself. So it casts this binding context, and it tries to make an appointment model from the binding context. And so yeah, so I think that's enough for views. The view models, let's go to patient's view model. So the patient's view model has the observable collection of patients, and it basically uses the it's a what's it called, conversion constructor, and it takes in a patient service proxy, which like the current patient service proxy, and it casts it into a patient view model, and it basically makes an observable collection of that. And so we're able to view each one in the view. Each patient is a patient view model, and so we're able to see all of the data that comes with that. And we have refresh for the notify property change when we navigate back to the patient's view or the patient's view, and we want to see an updated list. For example, if we added a patient or if we deleted one, and yeah, that's notify property change. These view models are all pretty much the same, so they all kind of have the same functions and things like that. So that's the patient's view model. And then what else? So services. So the service proxies are the basically it makes sure that we only have one instance of the object at one time, and that's through this lock. We want to prevent multi-threading. I'm pretty sure like we don't want to have the ability to access two different objects at the same time. So we create this instance lock. Um, and so, yeah, so the appointment service proxy is the biggest of all of these files. It has the most functions because we want to make sure that, no two people get scheduled for an appointment at the same time. You want to make sure that the time and date are correct. You want to make sure the physician is available, things like that. And also, let me talk about the rooms feature. So the rooms feature, it was an honors augment feature, and basically, um, we had to make sure that each appointment has a room schedule or a room for the actual appointment. And so what I did was basically have a static list of rooms for the entire application, and basically it will after each appointment will store the room into a dictionary with the date and time that it's currently being used, so that when I have another appointment I can check, okay, is this room being used at this time, and make sure that two appointments aren't in the same room at the same time. So I thought this was a pretty clever approach, so that I can prevent scheduling in the same room. And it will tend to use room one quite a bit because unless you're trying to book the same person, or the same patient, and the same physician um, at the same time. So it will tend to use room one until you give it a reason to use room two, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, it'll try to use room one as much as possible, and then move to room two, and then three and four. So that's that. Talked about that. This is just, getters, setters, things like that. So this is the adder update. So we take in a potential null appointment, and we, check if it's null first. If it's null, we return null. And then I go ahead and grab the requested physician and patient based on the ID that is given. Um, and we want to make sure that those two, that the patient and the physician aren't null, because that would not be good. That would mean we can't make an appointment. So I check those, and then we want to also see if this appointment already exists. And then I have this check conditions boolean that evaluates all the functions that are below, given the data, and I'll talk about that when I get down there. But this check conditions is like the grand check. And so, yeah, so if check conditions, if all of these functions return true, then we can go ahead and check for a room, and then we can go ahead and make the appointment. So if the existing appointment is not equal to null, that means it's an existing appointment. So that means they wanted to edit it. And I also made sure that the new room that they're trying to edit, or the new appointment that they're trying to edit, satisfies all the conditions as well. And then this is the add part. And yeah, so it adds the appointments to the patient and the physician's list of appointments in their model. And yeah, for example, like this is time valid. So the earliest time would be 8 a.m. and the latest time would be 4 p.m. And it checks if they're within bounds. Same thing as the date, same kind of idea there. Check if the physician's available, if the patient's available, and this is the delete. So once we delete the appointment, we're able to get rid of it from the actual dictionary that we used for the rooms. So that's that. Checks for room, things like that. Complete appointment. Once we complete the appointment, that's when it will gray it out in the view, and things like that. So if I explained all of these, this would be a hour video, but this is just kind of a brief walkthrough of the application, and things like that. So I would say that's pretty much most of this service proxy. This is the most complicated service proxy. The patient and physician aren't too bad. So moving on to the models, these are the most basic. You just have all the properties for an appointment and physicians and patients and things like that. So some getters and setters. So I had this application use generate ID. I believe it's down here. So generate ID, this is kind of like a boilerplate, ID generation. I know that for databases, they're, the IDs get taken, or the IDs get taken care of for you, so you don't really have to worry about this. But I created this like in the first instance of the project before MAUI. So this was before any database, working with databases. So I just wanted to make sure that we have a unique ID that most likely isn't going to be used the same twice. I would obviously check it if it's like, if this was like production code or something, because that's a terrible situation if you get two patients with the same ID or two physicians with the same ID. That will cause a lot of headaches and problems. So for this, I just used an 8-character random from these characters. And yeah, this will most likely not have two at the same time. That would be very unlikely. And that's the 2-string. Notice that if it's completed the appointment, it will display different information than if it's not completed. And it's the same as for patients, things like that. You have the copy constructor, and so that's for the models. So moving on to the API. So these controllers are basically they have all of the API endpoints, and so for example, like the get, this will get all of the appointments from the database, and yeah, so get, you can get from all of them from the database. You can get by ID, which will find a specific ID. You can add an appointment, things like that. Delete an appointment given an ID, and then you can update. So I actually didn't show this, but what's it called? Trying to open this. Oh, it's a program.cs. Okay. So this is going to be a demonstration of the API. So I use Swagger for the API, just basic default .NET Entity Framework core. And so, if, for example, if I want to get patients, this is the same as also just typing in patients into this, into the search. But for example, let me see. I'll just do a post. Try it out. Oh no, that's appointment. Oops. Patients. Okay. Patients, and I'll do a post for patients. Try it out. Oops, that's ID. Oops. Jalen code. Okay, so execute, and then if I go ahead and if I do this, so it shows, and it's in the database. I would have to go open the database, but it's definitely in there, and so yeah, that's basically it. If I actually go ahead and delete that patient, take in this ID. So now it should be gone. Yep, there we go. It's gone. So that's basically the API. And eventually I want to make it such that when you put in input into the actual application, it will use the API and add things, delete things from the database and things like that. So that's going to be something else. So if I go ahead and stop this, that's pretty much it. This is the API stuff is the farthest I got in the project. So that's the highest, I guess, grade possible. So for the purposes of the course, I did assignment 1, I did assignment 2, 3, and 5. For 4, 4 was back-end focus, and yeah, so this was web API stuff. I'm not really sure if I did assignment 4, like in terms of what I did for the actual application, but that's pretty much it. I'm gonna continue working on this project, but for the purposes of the course, this is what I got to, and the API supports adding to the database and things like that. I used Postgres for the database, so yeah. Thank you for listening.